You've entered BOOKSTORM with Kristen Civiletto and me, Chris Storm. This is a podcast devoted to best-selling books that matter, books that make a difference. We're diving down deep with beloved authors about their stories. We're exposing hot-button topics and heartfelt themes, the issues that affect each of us in our own lives, as siblings, parents, partners, friends, as human beings. We're braving new ideas, fresh thoughts, hard lessons, and important truths. Those kinds of things that stay with us long after we turn the last page and close the book. Welcome back to BOOKSTORM Podcast, loyal listeners. We're pretty excited about who we have with us here today because you've seen this book. There's a lot of talk and a lot of hype about it, and with good reason, because Kristen and I love it. We're here to talk about First Lie Wins with Ashley Elston. And welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
We're happy to have you here all the way from Louisiana, and I can hear your accent a little bit. It's very pretty. We're excited we have people from all over the country and all over the world on BOOKSTORM, and I think that's half the fun of it, isn't it, Kristen?
Absolutely.
We get to meet people like you. So let me just tell a little bit about you for our listeners. As you all know, this is the Reece Witherspoon Book Club pick. We love Reece's books. We at BOOKSTORM watch what she does and Jenna, and we vet before we take them on. So we did a read of this and we could not put it down. Highly recommend it. You may recognize the name Ashley Elston because she's written 6 young adult novels that have been pretty highly regarded. She was a finalist in the Best Young Adult Novel category in the International Thriller Awards, which is a very big deal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Her work has been translated into 23 languages. Now, I like this about you. She graduated with a liberal arts degree from Louisiana State. She worked for years as a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
How cool is that? Before turning her hand to writing. And we're all so glad that you did. And this also goes to show, and I have to put a plug in here, we have a lot of authors who did not get a writing degree, because I think, and I believe, like any art form, with some art forms, either you have it or you don't. And we're very grateful that you found yours and that you're using it. She lives in Louisiana with her husband and 3 sons. And I'm just going to quote Mary Kubica because she's a friend of BOOKSTORM. She's coming on 2 times to our show in a couple of weeks. We love her. And she says that this book is an edge of your seat read that's as emotionally moving as it is gripping. Yep, Mary, we totally agree. And we're very happy to have Ashley with us here today.
Thank you. And look, the smile's been on my face for a while now. My cheeks, have built muscles up I didn't know I had. So it's been a good month. It's been a good month. And, quotes like that from Mary just, make it even sweeter.
That's wonderful. Well, as Chris mentioned, we're here to talk about your new release, and that is First Lie Wins, which, by the way, we love this cover. It is very, very cool.
They killed it on the cover. They really did.
They really did. And I give our listeners just a little bit of the background of your story. I promise not to give away any spoilers, which is very hard.
It's very hard.
And,
yeah.
And if you want to add anything when I'm done, please be our guest to do that. Now, in this thriller, we meet Evie Porter. She's in a new town. She has a great relationship with her boyfriend, a house with a picket fence. She has a garden, and she's getting to know her boyfriend's friends. The only catch is that Evie Porter doesn't actually exist. It is part of her job. The identity comes first in her job. So right now she's Evie Porter. And once she's given a name and a location by her very mysterious boss, Mr. Smith, she learns everything there is to know about the town, the people in it, and whoever it is who is her mark. And in this case, it is her boyfriend, Ryan Sumner. Now, Evie is not privy to Mr. Smith's real identity, which is making things a lot harder. But she knows that this job is going to be a little different. Ryan's a little different for her. She is interested in potentially developing this relationship further. She can maybe envision a future, but she can't make any mistakes because she's already on some thin ice. Now, she's always had it in the back of her mind that she can go back to her real identity, her original name. She has worked hard her whole life to keep that name very clean. There's a big emotional connection for her with it. Now, somebody has turned up in Evie's new town with her name, and they both know that that's a lie. Now, Evie has to stay one step ahead of her past. She cannot forfeit her future she envisions for herself, and the thrills keep coming. Did you want to add anything to that summary?
You did good. Like, I need to like record that when they say what you're about. I just can play that because I stumble around because I'm so scared I'm going to give something away or, no, you did. That was it. You did fantastic.
It's hard not to give away things in this story. It
Yeah.
truly, like Chris and I talk
Yeah.
about that all the time. We're always worried. We know that worry.
Mhm. Yes. No, you nailed it. That's great.
Everybody loves Kristen's book summary, and I'm so glad she does it. And people say to her all the time, come on book tour. And I'm on the background saying, can I come too? I'll carry her briefcase.
Yes, please. Yes. No, yeah, that was amazing.
So I want to say for our readers, I read this book in one afternoon.
Oh,
This,
wow.
this is not only a mysterious cat and mouse game, but it's something a lot deeper. Evie Porter's employer taught her this lesson. Do whatever you must to save yourself and the job. Evie took this to the extreme because of her extreme situation. But let's unravel this motto a little bit, because as readers, we may discover that we all live by this a little bit now and then, maybe more than we should. At what point is saving the job not always synonymous with saving ourselves? And I wondered, as you, as the writer, what do you think about placing a job or a career or a goal as greater than our own well-being? When does this become something dangerous, both for Evie and for us in the real world?
Right. So, in Evie's world, obviously she's kind of living a different world than most of us because she's a criminal, right? And so I would like to think most of us are not criminals, but so, the danger that comes with her job would be different than a danger that would come with mine as, normal citizen out here, staying within the law. So, that danger is real. I mean, like, could be death. I mean, it could be a lot of things, right? But I do think, like you said, for all of us, where's the balance between the work and the home life and the self? And I think a lot of people are forced to almost put that job first, and a lot of reasons because they need the income. And they have kids at home and they have to have one job or two jobs or three jobs. And, the body wasn't made for that. Plus then caregiving and taking care of your home and, when do you sleep? And so I think it's very easy to put the job over the person in a lot of respects. And then, one is realizing you're doing it. And then two, do you really have the option to change that? You can say this, I'm kind of killing myself over here, but I don't really have an option. I mean, I have to, I have to keep going. And so, and she has to make some pretty difficult decisions and, kind of part ways with things that she didn't want to part ways with in order for that job not to get the best of her. So while different, not really, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And for Evie, I felt at a certain point that that job was Evie's answer to a better or new or different way of life, as it is for a lot of people, in the real world. It's our way out of a bad situation or poverty or whatever our future holds. And we put a lot of hope, and so did Evie, that almost that was a job could save you from something.
Right. Well, she stumbled into that way of life by necessity. I mean, she needed money. She needed it quickly. She didn't know any other way to get it. And until she, pulled her first job, pulled her first con at a young age. I think then she realized she's good at it. And I'm good at it. And then what I liked most about her is that she was unapologetically good at it. Like, this may not be the right thing to do, but it is what I'm going to do. And she almost sort of climbed her own corporate ladder, even if it was a criminal one. It was still, I'm gonna work my way up. I'm low man here, but watch me, level up every job, give me more, give me more, give me more until, she's, kind of tapping at the top there. And so, I kind of like, she just embraced it.
Yeah, I like that she did that too. She was a character that we really liked a lot.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that kind of feeds into like, you're fine with somebody that's, on the wrong side of the law, as long as they're not punching down, right? I mean, if I'm taking something from somebody that's worse than me, or, doesn't play by the rules, worse than me, like it's a Robin Hood type mentality, right? Like, it's fine if I take from the rich, but don't take from the poor. That's when I think you're going to lose a reader.
Yeah. You take us to the brink, though, I have to say, especially with the Ryan relationship. So, Ash, I want to ask you, I love the underlying themes relating to identity that are throughout this book. That was fantastic. And here, Evie really treasured things that were tied to her original name and her identity. It had to do with her love of her family. And ultimately, nothing could take away those memories that she had stored up in her heart. In the end, aside from present relationships that we have, are those memories some of the most treasured things that we carry with us through life?
Oh, I think so for sure. And, I can say now, I'm 3 kids, my oldest kid's 23. And, I think back to, my mother was 26 when I was born and I was 26 when he was born. And so it's at any given moment, I can look at where I am and where he is and know that that was my mother and me. And as we get, it's fine when we're young, it's like whatever. But now that, she's, getting older and we have some health issues, and I start looking at that, me to her and then me to him, it's like, it'll kind of hit you a little bit. And so I think you think back and, what were those cherished memories? What am I going to remember about my mom? What am I going to remember about my dad? And, or we get together for family weddings and you see your cousins and you're like, oh my God, do you remember when we were like 12? I mean, so, I may not see them all the time like I want, but I know if I see them, it's like those years didn't happen. And it's because we have that as our basis. I mean, that is our foundation, are those memories. And we can talk about that, all day long, every time we see each other. And it is kind of that common thread. And so I think it becomes more than a memory. It becomes actually like a connection to people that share that same memory with you. And for Evie, she just wants a family, and she's, lost the family she had, not by choice. And I think, everything she did after that was to try to create one. I mean, if you don't have one, you can find one, you can make one. And that's really all she wanted to do, was like, where are my people? Where are my people?
Yeah. And, in today's world, identity obviously is a very important subject and a very talked about subject. And I saw you really playing with some of those themes about putting on an identity and what does that mean for your future and your past? Because sometimes, first of all, they collide.
Yes.
And second of all, it's how do you forge that new identity? And again, I don't want to come out on one side or another of anything, but your book prompts the reader to really think about that. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So she has to decide, like, what is this environment I'm trying to get into? And, being in the South, like, it would be very hard to come into a very close knit group of people that have known each other since childhood. I mean, let me put it to you this way. I am from Monroe, Louisiana, which is an hour and a half down the road, but I moved here when I was 19 and I just turned 50. So I've been here a long time. And I was, like you said, a wedding photographer. So I know a lot of people throughout that career. I mean, if I haven't taken your picture, I probably saw you at a wedding. Yet I'm still like, oh, but you're not from here. Because, like, okay, not really, it's hard. It is hard, especially a close-knit friend group. And so to think, I've got to bust my way into that. And how do I do that? I have to dress the part, I'm not, or dress where I think I could get in. So maybe not the part, but, so I think it's very calculated.
Yeah. Yeah. She made a lot of choices along the way that as she was making them, I'm thinking to myself, oh, don't go there. But I could see she had a goal in mind and she was always working towards that.
Mm-hmm.
So very well done.
Well, thank you.
I loved how his friends were skeptical of her, because I thought that's real life. If somebody new comes into that friend group that no one's ever heard of from a different town,
right,
a good friend will take a little closer look. I thought that was fun.
Right. And then if they're like, God, our friend's kind of, he's falling fast. And who is she? I mean, and not even thinking that she's a con artist or a grifter. They're just like, I mean, what if she's just not a nice person? I mean, like, it's just at the very basis of, who are we letting into our circle? Sort of even at the beginning where she's like, they won't let me on the group text just yet. You have to earn your place on the group text, and it's simple things like that, right? I'm like, you text her separately. Don't put her in our group text, because then we can't get rid of her. Those are sacred spaces. So
it's hysterical. Group texts are so big, and we all have them. And like, it hits a holiday and oh, here they all come. First hour of the morning, I've got to say happy Thanksgiving to all these people. They're kind of good.
I've got one aunt. I'm like, I'm begging you on a weekend. Can we please, like 10 a.m., no earlier, just it's Saturday,
Give it a little
She's
bit.
always like, good morning, sunshine. I'm like, it's 7 p.m. on Saturday. Yeah. So,
well, that's so funny. Well,
yeah.
I have to say, I got to talk about the title of the book, because it's a stroke of genius. First lie wins. Let's talk about lying. We all do it. Small little fibs to great big lies, sometimes to protect someone else, to protect ourselves or who we're pretending to be, or maybe to hide our imperfections or mistakes. But this whole idea about a first lie, setting a groundwork, a place to springboard off of, is interesting to the reader. Does telling that first lie imprison us in a way? Is every other thing we say after that have to be another lie? And I just wondered what you thought as the writer in choosing that. What does that first lie mean to all of us in the real world? And I could say personally and professionally, this is tricky.
It is. I think, I came across that. It's an old saying, and I came across it in an article, because titles are hard. You start Googling words like lying and phrases that use lying and, things like that. And this was actually something from the show Catherine the Great, which I have not seen the show, but I did read the article. And poor Catherine had a pretty bad rumor that dogged her life. I'll let y'all Google that, because it's an interesting little rumor. But, somebody said it, and then forever she's like trying to say, that's not true. That's not true. And she just could not get ahead of it. And they say something in the show to the effect of, well, the first lie is always the one that's hardest, to sort of combat. And I was like, God, I love the idea of that. And the feeling that, once you put something big out there, but she's not just saying it, you have to say it with confidence, and you have to say it like you mean it. And you have to say it where you don't feel like it can be questioned. And then it's like, prove me wrong. I mean, like, prove it's not true. I mean, and that's even harder. But then you look at even the media today, or politicians, and some of the most outlandish things that they say. And you're like, God, I mean, that's not true, right? I mean, nobody's going to believe that, right? But they say it with the microphone, very booming loud, and everybody believes it. And it's because it was said with such a level of confidence, and, it's with the level of truth that maybe may not be there. And I think it's a human nature to be like, I'm gonna believe that. I mean, he sounds right. He sounds like he's telling me the truth. And so for her as a con artist, I mean, all a con is I need them to believe what I'm saying is true. If I say I'm Evie Porter, I am Evie Porter, prove me wrong. And she's just very good at, when she puts that lie out there, that big one, they're not going to question it.
And don't you think that as humans, we want to believe something sometimes? And if we hear that first lie, we sort of adhere to it, even if it's gossipy or malicious. Now we've made our mind up. That's the truth. We're sticking by it. We have supported it and endorsed it. And now to change our mind, it's going to take a lot.
Well, and you also like, well, I'm gonna feel like an idiot if I've been believing something that's not true. So I'm just going to believe it's true. I mean, there's a lot of that part of it too. Like, I don't want to admit that I, believe something that was not true, because that makes me feel kind of silly or dumb. Mm-hmm. So you get sort of that side of it too. And then sometimes, like you say, you want to believe it. Like, I like her. I want her to be Evie. Like I'm good with it. I mean, I think it's very interesting. Human nature to me is so fascinating, what you can kind of believe, not believe. And, there are people out there that convinced a whole group of people to do crazy, crazy things. And, it's just.
It's very fascinating. That's one of the reasons why we loved it.
Okay. I want to pick up on that idea of human nature. No matter how much we think we operate on our own, right? There's a certain part of us that really seeks out community, and even in good things and in bad things, right? And in your story, Evie was musing on the fact that we need people with whom we can be ourselves,
Mhm.
people who understand the challenges of our lives. Why is that community so important? And do you think it really plays into this idea of having a greater purpose? I don't know. I wanted to ask you what you thought about that.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think just by nature, I mean, nobody really wants to just be on their own and left with their own thoughts. I mean, my gosh, I mean, you need, even if it's not like, I'm not one, I don't want a huge group of friends, but my friends I have, we're close, and it's, where you can, be real. I've got to feel like I can be real with, a certain group of people, especially when like I'm going to a bookstore and there's gonna be 100 people and I'm like, yes, everything's fantastic. You didn't see me crying yesterday because I could not figure out the plot of the book I'm working on. That's okay. It's all, like you can't always show that raw, not messy side. And, so you do need a place where you can, or I do. And with Evie, she, every new job she goes into, she's lying about who she is, and she's lying about her name and her background, and she can't really open up. She can't be close. And so hers, I think, is even worse because it's very isolating. And so when she meets Devin, and then when she meets other people, and it's like, okay, I don't have to put on the act. I mean, they know who I am. And not only knowing who I am, they have accepted who I am. And there's something, I think, very powerful for just not only the knowledge, but the acceptance of who you really, really are. That, feels good.
Yeah, I think there's something to the fact that you need people with whom you can let your guard down.
For sure. For sure.
And
And
I
whether
like,
that's family or friends or, whatever, but
and I like how you said, you don't need 100. You need just a few, just a couple of really close, good friends.
yes.
Before we let you go, let me just say one thing that Evie's mother always said, because it's an old-fashioned wisdom, but it really stuck with the reader for all of us today. It sounds like something our own mothers would have said. Learn everything you can, try your hardest, and be the best at what you do.
Mhm.
Well, Evie was doing that.
That's why she was like, this is what I'm good at. My mama told me to go be good at something, and I'm good at this, and I'm gonna try my best, and I'm gonna be the best I can be at it. And so she takes my grandmother used to say, my grandmother was a kindergarten teacher, and she had 7 children, and I was one of 25 grandchildren for her. And so we would go in little packs and stay with her throughout the summer, for a week here, whatever. And she almost treated us like, her students. And, but so she talked to us kind of like that, like, try your best, do your best today, be the best, And so a lot of that kind of stuff was very much my grandmother. And it's you just need somebody to be like, just go do your best. And, and she did that.
I like that. It feels good. Do your best. It doesn't
your
have to be perfect. You don't have to be the president of the United States. Just do your best. It feels
Yeah.
really good. I'm going to stick
That's
with that.
well, and I think it's also like and fine with that thing is, and then do that thing. Don't go try to chase something you're not good at. Like because a lot of people think they chase things that are going to make them happy and ultimately don't. So find the thing that does, and then go do that. And I think that can be such a great thing.
I like that. So before we let you go, speaking of which, finding the thing that you're good at, what are you going to write next?
I'm working on something new. I'm in the very early finding my way, letting it marinate a little bit. But it feels good, feels exciting. This is a lot of pressure to write after this book because, talk about trying to live up to yourself. Yeah. So fingers crossed. But I'm new. It's new. It's new. But we'll see.
Okay, it's going to be adult, not young adult. You're going to do
Adult
another
thriller. I'm staying in this lane for a little bit.
Okay.
See where that takes me.
We're happy you are, and I know it's going to be great. And so, listeners, you have to pick this book up. First Lie Wins. You're going to love it. And in the meantime, definitely connect with Ashley Elston. You can find her on Instagram, Facebook. You can find her at her webpage, ashleyelston.com, where you can subscribe to her newsletter. This has been almost as much fun as reading the actual book.
This has been great. I so appreciate y'all taking the time for me today. It's been great.
Thanks so
Wonderful.
much.
Take care, Ashley.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, that was a wide-ranging discussion and so much wisdom that you were just talking about at the end. I loved that. I want to go back to something that Ashley talked about right in the beginning. And that was this idea of, not just putting your career first, but almost losing yourself because you don't have options. And I think there's a lot of people who may find themselves in that position where they're so focused on survival that they're not also paying attention to their own mental health, their physical health, or maybe the emotional needs of other people in the household. And they don't feel like they have a choice. What do you think about that?
I thought that was that question that I asked led to a whole different dimension that I didn't consider. And I thought, yes, we do put all of our hopes and dreams into a career because we often need it. We need to support our family. Um, but what about when we put our hopes and dreams into the career because we want to be famous or we want to be rich? And we lose ourselves in the process. And then when we attain that goal, we sit back and say, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. It's a very, very confusing topic with a lot of layers and a lot of meaning. And I don't have a good answer, but it's interesting in here with this character, Evie. I mean, what do you think? Do you think I think she was on the right track, but yet the wrong track, a little bit of both. But what do you think?
Yeah, well, I thought one of the things that really challenged her throughout this book was she could see a future. It was within her grasp, but she could very easily also lose it. And I think that was like a whole nother level of angst that she was experiencing. That's why this book is interesting because on a couple different levels, you're stressed in a good way, an entertaining way. But one of them is to be able to see the goal within your reach and you could screw it all up. And I think
And
that's what Evie was doing.
yeah, but if she hadn't gone for this very strange, challenging career, where would she be?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to this. Like, I
Yeah.
can't judge anyone's career choice. And I kind of like what Ashley said. Don't try to get someone else's career. Stop, you know, looking for something that isn't yours. Kind of really narrow down what's your gift, what's your talent, what's really your passion. And then, like her grandmother said, be the best you can be. That's all you can do.
Mhm.
I
Well,
love that.
yeah, and well, that's the value of having options, and I think that's what we've all been talking about a little bit, and there's this idea of making sure you create options for yourself because it does sometimes look like you don't have the option to pursue a gift or an interest or a career. And I know this feeling, like you know where you want to be, but you know what you have to do. And sometimes the have to do kicks you out of the rest of your life if you let it.
Yeah.
So that was a really good question you asked her about when does it become dangerous, unhealthy, too much,
Well, that's a good
you
point
know?
too, because I also think you can't sit home and think, oh, I wish I could be this or do this, and maybe someone's going to knock on my door. You have to go out there and be aggressive.
Yeah.
But when do you get caught up and lose yourself in achieving this goal and forget why you're going there?
Yeah.
Like, this is a very cool topic. And it really is brought up in this book. Now, readers, let me just say, this is a really great thrill ride. This is just plain old entertaining, and you're not going to be able to turn the pages quick enough, but there's a lot to it. And let me ask you one question. Evie longed for a real home. At one point, she saw a house overflowing with pots of spring flowers on each brick step with a little front porch swing. And she said, this is the safe haven I've always wanted. It made me sort of think, is it really that white picket fence in the porch swing and the flower pot? Or is it something deeper that she longed for?
Yeah, I think it represented something to her in terms of stability, maybe a longing of what she envisioned she wanted with her own mother. And that representation of what we think is security and stability, maybe sometimes that takes the form of a home with a white picket fence and your own property and the black shutters. But I think that's just a representation of that underlying need for security. What do you think?
I agree. Or you may picture yourself in a soaring office with floor to ceiling windows overlooking a huge city with a huge desk. And in your mind, you think, if I could be there, I would achieve my goal, but it's not really there. It's
Mhm.
what it represents,
That's
which
true.
is pretty cool too. So, yeah, I just loved it. It was a lot of fun and such a pleasure to meet Ashley. And listeners, stay tuned. We have a very busy lineup. We have Mary Kubica coming back for the second time. We have Michelle Gable, Dervla McTiernan, Susan Mallory, Lisa Unger, Heather Gudenkoff, Liza Palmer, Christopher Reich, Bonnie Jo Campbell, CJ Box, Amiko Jean, Benjamin Stevenson, and we are excited.
We are, and we have listeners now in 77 countries, 50 states, 1,600 plus cities. We thank you for listening. We love hearing from you. And I think you appreciate these fantastic authors that we're bringing on. That's what we're hearing from you. And we thank you. We're very grateful. So stay on the radar with us. You can find us at bookstormpodcast.com, on Facebook, on Instagram, on X. You can find us on TikTok, on YouTube. We have 125 plus fantastic authors with these kinds of in-depth interviews where we go deep into the themes underlying these books. And I think the authors are loving it. So until next time, one of the best ways to brave the storm, listeners, is to dive down deep into life-changing fiction.